Hello, parents. I'm Dr. Lalit Mittal from Giggles Clinics and my own space. So we have discussed a lot about role of probiotics, about gut-brain axis, and how they are influencing and modifying the behaviors in autism. So this is a small video and going into little detail about the potential role of probiotics in modifying behaviors in neurodevelopmental disorders. So we have discussed about gut-brain axis and various other mechanisms. So I'll be going in little detail about the functions of probiotics and how they have a potential effect in modifying the behaviors in neurodevelopmental disorders like autism and ADHD. So there is a slide I'm showing, and hopefully we will be able to understand exactly what is happening in this. So just a minute, please. So basically this is a very complex slide, and this slide is basically showing about the relationship between the gut and the brain axis. See, on the topmost side, there is a brain, which is marked as brain, and the bottom, which is the red line below that, it is the intestine. So the brain and the gut both are connected through various mechanisms. They are connected through the nerves, which the most common is the vagus nerve. They are connected to the neurotransmitters like GABA, glutamate, and various other neurotransmitters. They are also connected through the chemicals. So this is a lot of connection between there, which is between the gut and the brain. And this is what we call as the gut brain axis. Now, this is a bidirectional flow. Means to say, whenever the gut is unhealthy, it will affect the brain in the form of hyperactivity, aggression, or whatever form. And if the brain is not functioning properly, it will indirectly affect the gut. So this is how the gut and the brain axis is bidirectionally, it is connected with each other, and that is why it is now said we are more in approach towards making the gut, or what we call the gut healing, that if the gut is better, or if the gut is healthy, then probably the functioning of a brain will be better, the child will be in a better calm state, he will be more relaxed, he will be more focused. So going to the detail about this, I'll be focusing about how the probiotics might be helpful in modifying the behaviors. So coming to this, the second slide. Now, this is the slide which is clearly showing that these are some of the, this is the leaky gut. In between the gaps which are there, we can clearly see these are the leaky guts, and the leaky guts are known to be there in children who are on the spectrum. So exactly what happens now in this slide, we can clearly see, try to focus on this slide. What I want to mainly try to make you understand that the goal, the round circles which are there in the blue color, these are considered to be, consider them as a probiotics which we are giving to the children, and the green ones which are written as pathogens, these are the pathogenic bacteria. See, we know that in the gut, in a healthy gut or an autistic gut, whatever the child is in the spectrum, there are always good bacteria and bad bacteria, or what we call the pathogenic bacteria. Now, pathogenic bacteria most commonly include E. coli, or you can say, if the number is increased, or Clostridium species, or you can say they are Propionibacteria. And the good ones, most commonly, which have been studied and which have been found to be low in children who are on the spectrum, the most common ones are Lactobacillus species and Bifidobacterium species. So what happens when the amount of bad bacteria or the pathogenic bacteria increases? They release small amount of acids which are known as short chain fatty acid. Now SCFA is written on the diagram. These are small yellow spots are there. So these are known as small chain fatty acids. Now what happens? These small chain fatty acids, when they are released by the bad bacteria or pathogenic bacteria, they get bound to the intestines. Now in the lower layer I have written the diagram which is there, mucus, enterocytes. Enterocytes mean the intestinal cells. So these short chain fatty acids, they bind to these intestinal cells, and through the leaky gut, they are released to the intestines and leave the brain. So during this process, what happens? These short chain fatty acids causes the activation of other compounds of pro-inflammatory markers, which are known as, I just show you the slide, which are known as interleukin 1 and interleukin 6. Now, these interleukin 1 and interleukin 6, these are pro-inflammatory markers. Pro-inflammatory markers means to say, which will cause the inflammation of the brain or the swelling. So these are the part of the immune system. So in short, I can say, whenever the amount of bad bacteria or pathogenic bacteria in our body increases, these SCFAs or short chain fatty acids, they are released, they bind, they enter into the intestinal enterocytes, they bind to the intestinal mucosa, and as a result of which, what happens? they will release, they will cause the activation of the immune system. Because of this, there is a large amount of secretion of interleukin 1, interleukin 6, which are considered to be pro-inflammatory or pro-swelling markers, which will cause the inflammation in the brain and can cause hyperactivity, aggression, various other things. Along with that, these short chain fatty acid, they also cause the activation of other neurotransmitters like GABA and glutamate. GABA we know is an inhibitory neurotransmitter, but the balance between the GABA and the glutamate is disturbed in the brain. As a result of which, what happens when they are released, they shoot up and reach the brain, and the levels between the neurotransmitters, that is GABA and glutamate, is disturbed. As a result, the calming state, the hyperactivity state, or the functioning of the brain is disturbed in children who are on the spectrum. The most probable reason because of this is that there is a release of these short chain fatty acids which get bound to the mucosa, and they cause the activation of the immune system along with the activation of neurotransmitters. So what happens, and this is the basis of gut dysbiosis, means to say when the microbiota in the children is disturbed, when the pathogenic bacteria becomes in the higher ratio compared to those of the good bacteria. And the good bacteria which have been found in a lot of studies and which have been found to be low in children who are on the spectrum are bifidobacteria, which have been written there, and lactobacillus. So what happens when we are giving the probiotics? Consider these as probiotics. Again, the small yellow, the small blue dots which are there, round circles. So when these probiotics are given, what happens? They will bind to the pathogenic bacteria. Now the pathogenic bacteria are the ones which are in green colors with the small spikes which are being raised. So they will bind, and there is a small in circle is there, which is there. They have written decoy. So what happens? These probiotics, they bind to these pathogenic bacteria, and as a result of it, what happens, they will prevent, as a result of what happened, they will prevent the binding of these pathogenic bacteria, and also they will prevent the release of short chain fatty acids. So when these short chain fatty acids are not released by these pathogenic bacteria, so what happens, there will be no inflammation, there will be no release of inflammatory neurotransmitters like interleukin 1 and interleukin 6, which we have seen in this previous diagram. So these are interleukin 1, interleukin 6. So when they are not released, as a result, the immune system will not be activated. So simultaneously, the brain will remain in a calm state. So this is considered to be basically a potential mechanism by how these probiotics might be useful in the gut of the children who are on the spectrum, especially those bacteria like probiotics which are containing lactobacillus species and bifidobacteria species. So they will prevent the release of these short chain fatty acids to these pathogenic bacteria, and probably will reduce the effect of inflammation, crypt hyperplasia, and as well as the release of short chain fatty acids and other immune systems which get activated. So this was a little deeper concept of about the understanding of about the probiotics and prebiotics, how they might be useful in modifying the behaviors in children. Thank you.